guys, and welcome to the Crafty Maker. Today we're going to be making a dice bag. So for this dice bag we're going to be cutting two squares which will be measuring 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Each piece you see on screen will have a 1/4 of an inch sewing line. This just makes it easier to attach the rectangles to the squares. The rectangles will measure 4 inches by 9.5 inches. And we're just going to cut off the excess and then we're going to start working on the outer lining. So we're going to cut a slit where each corner will be on the rectangle. This will just make it a bit more easier when trying to sew the square to the rectangle. So now we're just going to line up where each of those ends of the corners will meet, just with the 1/4 of an inch guideline on the actual square. So this may be a bit difficult because you're trying to look both sides of the material, but just have a fiddle around, try and get it aligned, and then once you're happy with it, you can then pin it in place, ready to take to the sewing machine. So this is the line that we're going to be sewing across, just where the pins are holding it in place. That black line that you can see is the line that we're going to be following with the machine. So now that we've sewn all 4 edges of the square to the rectangle, we're now just going to start to sew up the rest of the bag. So we're just going to line up the side, make sure that that guideline matches both sides of the material, and we're just going to apply our first pins, and once that's done, we're then going to sew on that line. So as you can see, it's all been pinned up and we're just going to sew along the line. So now all the sides of the bags and the base have been sewn together, we can now turn this inside out, have a quick look at it, make sure to push each corner out just to get that nice square base, and it should stand by itself. And then we're just going to repeat the same for the other lining. So for my inner lining of the bag, I have left about a 2-inch gap in this seam, but what I'm doing is I'm sewing up the bottom half, so down where the actual square base is, and what I'm doing is I'm making sure to go forward and backwards using the machine just to reinforce it, and I'm also going to do the same with the top. It's just so when I turn the bag the right side out, it doesn't rip. So for our collar, we're just going to fold the edges down and then sew them. Then we're going to fold that in half like a hot dog, and then we're just going to attach it around the top of the bag. So now I'm just going to take my outer lining, and I'm also just going to take the collar as well. I'm going to attach these with the raw side facing the same way. That way I know that they're going to be the right way when the bag's put together. And I'm just going to put the collar next to the seam, but I'm just going to move it slightly in a few millimeters, and then once that's in the place where I like, I'm just going to start pinning it in place. So now I'm just going to put my outer layer inside my inner layer, and I'm just going to make sure that all the corners meet and the two bottoms are touching. So I'm just going to use my ruler, just shove it inside gently, just shove it inside, make sure that all the four corners meet together, and when they do, I can then unfold the inner layer over the top of the outer layer. So they've all met. I'm now just gently unfolding it, trying not to get stabbed by any pins because that's not very nice. So once they've all been aligned and everything's sitting neatly and how I want it, I'm then just going to make sure that the two seams on the inner lining and outer lining meet so they look just like that. And then once I've got it happy to where I want it, I'm just going to take the first pin, make sure that all of the raw edges, so on the collar, outer lining and inner lining, all meet, and then I'm just going to pin them together and work my way around the rest of the bag. So we're all pinned in place, now it's time to just sew around the top. So now it's all turned inside out, we can take that gap that we made in the seam and just tuck in the raw edges and then take it to the machine and sew. So now we've sewn up the gap in our inner lining, we can now tuck it into our outer lining and we pretty much have a dice bag. The only thing that's missing is the drawstring, which we will move on to next. So to insert my drawstring, I just grab a safety pin and poke it through the end of my material I'm using for the drawstring. So here I'm using a bit of scrap t-shirt material. These work very nicely because they're kind of stretchy. And you just want to take your pin and poke it through the channel that you've made. And then just keep feeding it through until you get all the way through to the other end. So once you've got your string to your desired length, I keep it relatively short when the bag's open, so then when it's closed it's got a nice long string. You can start to fill it with your dice and hopefully it should stand nice and neatly for you, and that's your dice bag. Alright guys, so this is the dice bag all done and finished, and there are a few things I wish I could have improved on at the time of doing it, but it's fine the way it is. I wish that the collar was slightly bigger for thicker material because I do plan to buy some of those toggles to keep the bag closed, but I'll probably do that at a later date. So if I do buy one of those, I could probably put some thicker material in, but it's fine as it is. It's not going to go anywhere for now. I do wish that the base was slightly more rigid and had a flatter surface, but that's fine, it still stands. I wish the base was slightly bigger as well because then it'd mean more dice could go in there. But for the amount of dice that I own, I'm probably going to have to make a bigger bag because I own a lot. I do love the fact that this bag is also reversible. So if I get bored of the outside layer, I can also just flip it inside out and have a brand new bag completely. Because when it's flipped inside out, it looks completely different. So yeah, I do quite like this bag. I don't think there's much more I would change on this other than the few things I did point out. So if you guys do want to make one of these, please, I do totally want to see your pictures. Drop them in the comments, send it me on my Discord. Please, I want to see them. I want to see what you guys have come up with, see if you've changed my idea anyway. So drop a like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow my Discord, and I'll see you in the next project, guys. See you then. Bye.